2018 meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist. Alder Spate.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Kitzler.
Here.
Alder Kuhr. Here. Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Alder Moore is excused.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the January 16th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have one appearance tonight, Mr. Lindsay Wood Davis, who is here to give us a WVMO update. So welcome, Lindsay.
Annual report.
Glad to see you.
Thank you, Mayor. Every Wednesday evening at 6 p.m., WVMO airs a program called the Vintage Vinyl Hour, hosted by David Cobb. David just loves to play what I call classic cocktail music. If David Cobb was backing me up tonight, I'd ask him to cue up an LP with Frank Sinatra singing "It Was a Very Good Year," because for WVMO, 2017 was a very good year. Good evening, folks. Thanks for having me here. Remember, please, 2 points as I begin my report. First, that this is your radio station, licensed to the City of Monona, and that means that in the eyes of the FCC, the council and the mayor are ultimately responsible for its operation. Second, I'd like to remind you the WVMO first went on the air in August of 2015. So this 2017 annual report is only for our second full year of operation. However, I can honestly say that the results of that second year are filled with the sort of performance that would make a much more mature organization very proud. Let's break this down by quantity and quality. I believe you have the spreadsheets there. In calendar 2017, January through December, WVMO ran a total of 32,613 individual announcements. Importantly, all but a very few of these were produced and recorded in our studios in City Hall. This number of 32,613 is almost exactly the same as 32,878 that we ran in 2016. That is no coincidence, because the way we schedule announcements throughout our broadcast day means that if we were doing our job correctly, the combined total should remain approximately the same. It is within the categories that make up this big number that we do see some variations. Some have to do with how we code announcements. I'll give you an example here. Loud in the Library, something that we ran very heavily, is coded as a community event, not as a library event. So that's how those things go. Nobody, by the way, uses us better than the library. And they have so many different areas: education, environment, events. Their stuff tends to move throughout the report. Some have to do with changing demand, but the one category that we always pay closest attention to is public safety, where our LPFM license from the FCC mandates that we dedicate a component of our broadcast day to public safety. Neither component nor public safety are defined further by the statute, so we, in consultation with our FCC attorney, David Oxenford, decided long ago that WVMO would air a public safety announcement on average every 2 hours. And that is just what we have done with our 4,271 public safety announcements run over the 365 days of the year. The number that I really do encourage you to focus on is that big one, 32,613. Our internal and external missions of being both for Monona and about Monona are encompassed in that very big number. It is one of which I believe you should be deeply proud. It is also, you may be surprised to learn, one of the big reasons for our very real success. By developing a focus for our informational programming on a variety of local short-form announcements, rather than on boring, often divisive, long-form talk, We built what is to many in the broadcast business a surprisingly large cumulative audience of about 10,000 individual listeners a week. And it is an audience that shows unusual loyalty to the station. And that leads us to our qualitative discussion, a brief look of some of what transpired during this very good year for WVMO. Almost exactly 1 year ago, we held our first public meeting of the new Friends of WVMO, our 501c3 organization, which is focused primarily on fundraising and volunteer activities. It is an increasingly active group. Their Adopt a Watt program has raised close to $16,000 so far by selling about 65 of our 100 watts up for adoption. They hope to finalize the sales by the time of our third anniversary in August, with future funding plans in the works already. Also in February of 2017, we learned that WVMO had 6 finalists in the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Awards for Excellence program. And we had the first small discussions with Isthmus about a feature article on WVMO. Though no one knew it at the time, this will lead to something much, much bigger. In April, Alder Mary O'Connor abandoned the Community Media Committee and became mayor, and Jed Kaur left her role as the original vice chair of the Friends of WVMO to take her place on the council and the committee. In May, competing in the large market station category against other stations in Madison and Milwaukee, WVMO won 6 awards from the Wisconsin Broadcasters Awards for Excellence program. These were not only Wisconsin's first statewide broadcast awards to an LPFM station, but the first time an LPFM station had ever won such statewide awards in the entire nation. In June, it was revealed that the long-planned Isthmus article on WVMO was morphing instead into an entire issue, cover and all, about Monona. This wonderful issue of Isthmus would eventually come out at the end of July. Also in June, the online blog Spark, which is focused on non-commercial radio, posted a very complimentary article on WVMO. A greatly expanded version of this piece would be published later in the year as a feature in the Broadcast Industry Bible Radio World magazine. In addition to focusing on areas such as WVMO's top-notch audio quality and hyper-local nature, author Ken Mills called WVMO a national model for a powerful new form of American community radio. In early July, I received an email from our own city administrator, April Little, and her husband and Community Media Committee member, Greg Little, asking if WVMO had ever considered an on-air Christmas production of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. I said that we'd wanted to do this since our very first meeting in 2007, but that we'd been unable to locate a public domain script. April and Greg immediately provided an original radio script from 1939. We were off and running. The final result, 3 broadcast performances in December, were certainly some of the highlights of the WVMO year, not just because of the quality of the program, but because of the group that formed to produce the play. This won't be the last we hear from these folks. I would salute Joan and April for their roles in that. Throughout the spring, summer, and fall festival season, WVMO worked hard to be both visible and supportive of a wide variety of local festivals and events. Here are some of the highlights: the Monona Memorial Day Parade and the IHM Memorial Day Festival, Monona's 4th of July Monona Community Festival, where we broadcast the wife carry race live, and Madison's Orton Park Festival and Atwood Fest, where we were the primary media sponsors. We capped it off with a big push for the Monona Grove Businessmen's Association Chili Cook-Off, part of Park and Rec's Monona Fall Festival, where the weather was horrible. But the number of entrants in the cook-off grew for the first time in years. Each of these organizations gave us great thanks for not only the support, but the success their events gained from WVMO's efforts. Plus, we got the experience to make sure we finally were able to use our remote broadcast equipment successfully. Finally. Our Comrex remote equipment was what made it possible for WVMO to carry all of Monona Grove High School's Silver Eagle football games home and for the first time away. The quality was outstanding, and thanks to all hands on deck early on, reliable. At the end of July, the now famous Isthmus issue on Monona was finally published. What began as reporter Dylan Brogan's interest in and curiosity about the unique nature of an actual community-owned, locally programmed, and volunteer-driven radio station turned into a coup for the city. Earlier in the summer, we learned that WVMO had been voted a finalist for Madison's favorite radio station in the Mad Faves poll, part of Isthmus's annual manual publication. In late August, it was revealed we had finished third in the final voting, behind WORT and Wisconsin Public Radio. That's pretty good company for a 2-year-old radio station with 100 watts. Our volunteers continue to be the backbone of what we do, whether they are on air, in engineering, traffic scheduling, social media, the Friends Group, or any of a number of other critical but perhaps less visible positions. Will Nimmo continues to be, in my opinion, the best hire the city ever made. And he'll need to be, because our program director, the wonderful Tom Tuber, retired last week. No one person is going to take Tom's place, that's for sure. But Will is working hard to build a team of people to fill the void. You can tell that I am proud of what our little radio station has accomplished so far. I told you when we first began that this was a baby, and that babies will occasionally spit up on you, usually with no warning. WVMO isn't such a baby anymore. It's about 2.5 years old. All 2.5-year-olds occasionally run too fast, stumble, and scrape their knees. Our job isn't to keep them from scraping their knees. Our job is to pick them up, clean up their knees, wipe away their tears, pat them on the butt, and send them back outside. It's also our job to teach them not to run into the street. I have had a great time watching WVMO grow. However, early last October, I told Mayor O'Connor, City Administrator Little, and Alder Corr that after about 11 years of involvement with this project, the sell-by date on my WVMO milk carton will run out at the end of August of this year. I will be retiring again as the station turns 3. Between now and then, I'll offer what assistance I can to help the city develop a new management plan for the coolest little station in the nation. You've heard me say before, this isn't Lindsay's radio station or Tom's radio station. It is Monona's radio station. We should all be proud that with continued support, strong leadership, and a clear sense of mission, WVMO will continue to grow, accomplishing the mission of being both for Monona and about Monona. Thank you so much for the gift of allowing me to be involved in such a fulfilling project. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that great news, and I'm happy to see you've had another successful year.
Yeah, we really did. It was just wonderful. And thank you all for the support. Lots more fun stuff coming.
Great. We appreciate all the time you put in on this, Lindsay.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer, did you? Okay. All right. Anybody else have any?
Questions?
That's
I'm out. Thanks
you.
very much.
All right. There is no public hearing tonight. Item F, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Council action items, G, Section 1, unfinished business. A, consideration of Resolution 18-1-2234, amending the 2018 operating budget for a full-time administrative assistant position in the Parks and Recreation Department, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Director, and at Finance and Personnel, we agreed to send this on with, for the council to consider with no.
No. This one.
I thought we sent this on for, oh, we did approve
No,
this.
this we approved.
I'm sorry, okay. We had so many things we,
Right.
different ways. We did approve this in Finance and Personnel, I'm sorry. Mr. Anderson.
Oh, good evening. This is totally unfair to have to follow Lindsay Wood Davis in any sort of speaking role at all. Lindsay and I had coffee last week, and we had a great conversation about how we can be more relevant with Park and Rec, so you'll hear us more often. But part of that reason is precisely why I'm here asking to have this person go to full-time. So Missy and I have more time for
Nice how you worked that out.
these
That's
sort of things. Yes, because we like to do our radio spots very well, but sometimes the process of putting them together takes a while. But if you could ever get your hands on the outtakes, you would laugh. Anyway, this position is basically taking two existing .48 permanent part-time administrative assistant positions into one full-time administrative assistant. So previously, with the creation of the after-school coordinator / rec coordinator position, we were going to be having that 1.48 position wrapped up into that position. Then with the retirement, we went from 2 down to like 0 administrative assistants at this time. That's been about the 4th person in 4 years. The challenges of recruiting and training a person every time into that position has gotten to be it's a lot for what we do and what we want to do moving forward. So we ask that this proposal be considered. We think with consistency with the department, having one person that's in charge of kind of the administrative functions of the job, being able to focus on our customer service, but also marketing and communication to our residents and sponsors about events, etc. So we brought this proposal forth, and I think at Finance, Mark Hotaker explained the financial situation with the levy for 2019.
And Mark, would you like to? I think we were concerned if we would have money available, how much money we would have available in 2019, since we're already obligated with the new dispatch and firefighter.
You know, I'm just going to, mind if I go over kind of how that TIF is closing, how that affects. This was one of the questions that came up during finance. So the question is, was how we're going to fund this, or is there money available for next year with all the other stuff, with the new dispatcher being there a full year now, and the fire department being a full year now, how this all kind of relates. So basically, TIF 2 is closing this year. We will notify, and we'll have resolution that will come through the council probably a little after April 15th, notifying them that the TIF 2 is officially closed, and then they'll do their analysis, and we'll close it out, and they'll put the equalized value into the overall general levy. What that will do then is for the 2019 budget, which will be coming up next year, we'll have, when they close it, you get like a bump to your levy limit into the base, which will be a roughly, approximately, I'm going to say give or take a little bit, I'm not just right on, but pretty close. I think it's a pretty good number, give or take a little bit. It's $325,000 is what will increase the levy base by. We'll be increase it for that, next year. So that we'll have that money available to increase the levy limit by that $325,000, and then that does not include just a normal levy increase, which is your new construction number. I don't know if that number is going to be a big number, just because it takes into consideration new construction that happened in 2017, and offhand, I don't remember a large project that would account for a large increase to a new construction number. So I'm assuming that's going to be a pretty small, modest number. Probably add that in there, be a little 400,000 probably, or a little more than that. So that's going to be closing. So that's a $325,000 bump to the base value. So then I went back and I said, okay, how much of that's really kind of accounted for? And I'm including this rec department position in there. So if you add in, I added a couple other numbers in there. So I took in where health insurance has been increasing over the last 5 or 6 years. It's been roughly 8%. So I used that number. And then the rec department increase, which includes the after-school care coordinator he was talking about, that starts April 1st. So there'll be a full year of that next year. So there's that difference. And then there's the fire, which starts, I think, April 1st too. So there's the quarter of that will be increased a bit, fine. And then dispatch, right now we have to fund the full year. Right now we're only funding 6 months. We had those all numbers together. And then also there's a number amendment coming up related to brush collection. I added that number in, which is about $10,000. So I add all those numbers up, basically accounting for $193,000 of all those little things added together, those positions. So all that money that was counted, so $193,000 will have to automatically add to the levy limit. So if you include that position, if you back that position out, which we're talking about tonight, I believe that we'd back out, just to make make sure the right number I tell you. You'd back out 45,000 of that from that 193,000 if you didn't approve this position tonight. So, and that's where we are, kind of with the levy situation for next year.
Not to go down a rabbit hole, but if the Walmart case, for example, gets settled, that's $111,000.
And that would come out.
Or how does that all work?
So that's a little bit different. So that would come out of your fund balance. So it would be a fund balance number, reduce your fund balance number by that. So what that assessment changes, what will happen with that is people's tax bills will go up. So, you know, the big box will decrease by a lot. And it's just going to shift all the costs to the residential. And that's going to...
Does that impact our...
Doesn't impact, it won't
The levy
impact
or
these
anything?
numbers
Okay.
a ton. Will affect other things like debt limit and stuff like that. Analysis will have some type of effect if there's equalized value there. It's just basically shifting that cost and it'd be a big switch from the commercial to residential with that.
And can you remind me how much fund balance do we have?
I believe we're right around 25%.
Is that 300K or so?
Yeah, well, we have about 300K over, what, 18%.
Oh.
So it's like $1.3 million.
Oh, okay.
The one good news about closing, it kind of relates to this Walmart. So when you close it, right now we have a balance in our TIF 2 that we can't spend anything else. So we have a balance about I don't remember offhand, it's about $1.5 million we have. When we officially close the TIF, we'll officially close it actually, we'll send a notice to the state. Because we're new Monona, we can't officially do accounting purposes, close out the fund into 2019. So it's there's $1.5 million sitting in there we can't touch for anything. It's not including the renewed Monona money, it's just money that we're not able to spend. So we have to send that back to all the different districts. So we'll get probably 300-some thousand into our fund balance when we close that TIF. Just a one-time fund balance adjustment from that. School district will get a huge portion. I assume that's something they're looking at for some of their land purchases, I assume, because they'll probably get close to $1 million. So, into their fund balance, a one-time thing. So, that's all I have. Any questions?
Are there any other questions?
I do. So the 325,000, which is, as you said, builds the base, so it's ongoing. Will that actually increase the tax rate? I mean, or is that? Well, you didn't see that.
Technically, what's supposed to happen when it comes online now, because it wasn't in your tax rate, it's supposed to reduce the equalized value should reduce your tax rate. So the overall tax bill should technically go down a little bit, technically, because that's reducing your overall. Because right now, in the equalized value, how we do the tax rate, it's basically we have like $1 billion. So now we're going to add in another $1.1 billion. So that number will be divvied out, so they'll pick up with more taxes. So technically, everything goes right, the tax bill should go down a little bit. It does include the other districts too.
But if the entire 325 is spent, then it
should even out.
Even out.
That's
So it's not, even if we spend it on new things that we're not going to have now, it shouldn't make the tax rate go up.
That, in theory, that's what should happen.
Brian, did you have something?
No, I was just making sure.
Anyone else? Okay, Joan, is this a roll call?
Do you have a motion?
There's no motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll move to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have
Okay, anything else, Doug?
just one other question I get for Jake. This, kind of sticks out that the full-time or the part-time position is .48, which isn't, that's not an accident. I assume that's so that we don't have to pay benefits.
I think that was, originally that was where it was at that .48.
Right.
And that's, would be a point that I would make, just that if we value that amount of work, that we should also value to have that person be eligible for benefits to the city.
Just sort of a broader statement that not I'm okay with what you have proposed here to combine the, two and, or rather, to add a half and make it one full-time. But, we've had a lot of turnover in this. Part of it's been due to retirements, but I think if we, instead of intentionally keeping the hours just below the threshold for benefits, if we let it go to the threshold or above, so the permanent part-times got benefits, I think it would become a whole lot more attractive position. It would obviously cost us significantly more. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
No, I think those were all budgetary issues at the time of, adding that secondary .48 position from the original one. And, I don't have the numbers on what it would cost for that employee, but when you are able to offer a position that has benefits, it's a lot easier for me to recruit people and to say, we're not ever going to be able to pay maybe what Marketplace in Dane County is, but we have this awesome benefit package, and it goes from a select person that that doesn't need benefits now to a whole grouping of people that would say, hey, this is a great place to work, and we also are on this, great benefit package. So I'm convinced, that we're going to have great applicants if this is approved, which will only help the department.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Next item, 1B, consideration of resolution 18-1-2233, approving a facility use agreement with Monona Swim and Dive Club for the 2018 All-City Swim Meet put forth by the Park and Rec Board. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
Jake?
Attorney Cole reviewed the facility use agreement and put a few changes that should be in your packet, just noting that the fee with the sponsorship level, and then I think there was a strikeout on comparable facilities that can be used during the time of the all-city swim meet. So I think Park Board had made a recommendation to approve this, and that would be my recommendation as well.
Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1C, consideration of ordinance 1-18-694, amending chapters of the Code of Ordinances and fees, fines, and penalty schedule put forth by the city administrator. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
April?
Just a couple things to point out, other than the cleanup parts of the ordinance. This does include changing the city council meeting from 7:30 PM to 7 PM, and upon request of a council member, we included a change for the animals that are off-leash in any city parks where they're not supposed to be. The dollar amount was added for $100. So that was added into there.
This was a recommendation from Parks Board when we took that up, and I must have not included it in the notes, but there was, the approval of the dogs on leash ordinance also had the stiff penalty for violators of dogs off leash.
And when does the change of council time take place? Is that in March?
It would be effective, let's see, I think it says effective date is publication, I think, isn't it, Joan? So I'd have to actually figure out the
Publication would be next Thursday.
next Thursday. So it would be the
Next
following.
meeting.
The
Yeah.
next meeting, yeah.
Any questions? Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. To new business, item 2A, consideration of resolution 18-2-2236, purchase approval of two police vehicles put forth by the Public Safety Committee, and there's a request for immediate action on this.
Move to take this item out of order.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Chief Ostrander.
In the 2018 capital budget, the city council approved up to $82,000 for the purchase of 2 replacement squad cars. The 2 cars we're looking to replace are a 2014 Ford Utility Police Interceptor and a 2011 Crown Victoria. The Crown Victoria is currently used as our K-9 car. Both cars would be replaced with 2018 Ford Utility Police Interceptors. The K-9 car costs a little bit more. This is through the state bid through Ewald Automotive Group. The K-9 car, because it has extra air conditioning and lighting, is $34,063.50. The other patrol car is $32,121.50 for a total of $66,185. The balance of the money that's in that account would be used to upgrade equipment and pay for the changeover costs.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2B, consideration of Resolution 18-2-2237, purchase approval of dispatch consoles put forth by the Public Safety Committee. This is also requested for immediate action.
Move to take this out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
And this was approved at Finance and Personnel. Chief Ostrander.
The dispatch center, as you know, is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and they basically work at 2 workstations. The 2 workstations that are currently in place, we bought used from the city of Middleton back in 2009, and at this point, they've reached the end of their useful lifespan. We can't, the way they're set up is the desk positions can raise and lower, and at this point, we can't get replacement parts if they stop doing that. The equipment that we'd like to purchase is from a company called Zybex, which is the same company that made our existing equipment. It's sort of in the industry, it's one of the top companies out there. In the resolution, I have that the price would not exceed $35,000. We had $37,000 allocated in the budget. The quote I got from Zybex directly from the factory is $33,302.74. We had gotten also a bid from General Communications, which is a Zybex dealer. They came in at $40,000, and there was another company called Rightline, which also makes similar equipment, but still not up to the same standards as Zybex. They were at $32,151. Zybex would be the preferred equipment to purchase. The reason I have $35,000 in here is I just got the final quote today for $33,000, and there would be some additional costs, such as if we need IT support. Most of the company, the actual factory that makes it comes out of Indiana, and they would disassemble the existing equipment, take it away, and then install one workstation at a time, during which time we'd have the walls painted.
Any questions? Alderwood?
So the bid, or the quote from Rightline was about $1,100 more expensive. Could you just briefly talk about?
It was $1,100 less than Zybex.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Right.
But it's not built the same. I mean, I could pass out a little handout for the council to look at. It just shows like a mock drawing of what the equipment's going to look like. It has fans built in. It has places for the computers to be stored with cooling fans. It has like little heaters, lighting. All the cords are neatly stored. It's quite a step up from what we have right now.
Okay.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 2C, consideration of Resolution 18-2-2238, authorization to single source the purchase of a new ambulance put forth by the Public Safety Committee. Is there a motion to take this out of order?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. You didn't ask, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, this was not, it was, Finance and Personnel agreed to send this on to council without a recommendation, in which Alderwood can explain a little bit,
Do you want me to do that
if you'd
now,
like
or-
to. So I
Okay,
can-
sure. Yeah. So my concern here, and it's also I have a similar concern with the next item, the bid for the street sweeper. This is a $200,000 capital item, and I have a problem with only requesting a quote from one company. And they do have, as you'll hear in a second, they have some good reasons for why this particular vehicle with its features is desirable. And I think those are good points, but to me, without having gotten a quote for a similar vehicle, it's really difficult for me to determine, you know, well, we don't really have, we don't have a bidding process at all. There's no competitive process, so we don't know what price we might get for something else. I think the features that they're going to talk about would, to me, would be arguments in favor of going ahead and purchasing this against a more, or a cheaper ambulance, or, you know, because it has better features. But to me, it's not a justification for not getting other bids. It kind of comes, you know, it's what, well, I'll just leave it at that and let these guys, they already heard this once tonight, so.
I just have a quick, and maybe you're able to answer it. Did we ask for multiple bids for the fire truck, which was $600,000, or was that sole sourced as well?
That was sole sourced.
Okay.
Shame on me for us for
I
not
was just-
looking into it. I think that might be a little different
We
marketplace.
requested the same thing.
Yeah.
Sole sourcing the engine at that time too. The current ambulance that we have is a Braun. Both current ambulances that we have are manufactured by Braun. Braun, we've had really good success with this manufacturer. Some of the main reasons that we're looking at wanting to go sole source is the main reason, safety of the vehicle. Braun has a proprietary sliding door on the side of the ambulance, similar to a minivan where the door slides open as opposed to opening into traffic. When it opens into traffic, you then have a blind spot where the personnel need to get out and go around that, which puts them out into traffic on the Beltline, on 51, on Broadway, any times that we're working in the roadways. So safety from that standpoint is paramount in my opinion. For me, that's the main reason that I'm asking it. Another reason that we're looking at it is similarity from vehicle to vehicle. At 2 o'clock in the morning, if we have an ambulance that we lose a tire on or breaks down, we go from one ambulance to the next ambulance, and we're designing it identical to the current ambulance that we have. There are a few little changes that are required through NFPA and the federal standards, but the location of the compartments, that type of stuff, all the same. Muscle memory back to in the middle of the night, it's identical. Another big reason for going with Braun, their boxes are made all of aluminum. Other manufacturers have wood within their interiors. Dealing with patients, we do have issues with bodily fluids. Woods will absorb the bodily fluids, which then creates an issue with cross-contamination, with contamination of our personnel. With the Brauns, it's all aluminum, so you don't have the issue of any of the bodily fluids being absorbed into the materials, the construction materials of the vehicle. I'll let Chris is in charge of the ambulance committee to determine what we're going to do for a new ambulance. I'll let him.
Any more questions? I mean, what?
Alder Kitzler?
So, 2 questions. What's the delay if we don't sole source it? And I don't know if that's more of an administrative question. So if we approved it today, how long until you have it in hand? If we don't approve it today and we have to get bids, how long do you have it in hand?
I don't know. We don't have the exact. I would assume it's going to be about a 3-month delay from the time, and that's on top of the build time. That's not if we were to. I think they said it's 180 to 240 days once you sign the contract to build it. That time frame would be pushed back 3 months based on the time it takes us to write the specs for it. We would write the specs that would allow multiple manufacturers to write for the bid. If we put in the bid that it has to have a sliding side door, we're going to get one bid. So we have to write it so that we can do it so we get multiple bids, and then you have to compare apples to apples. The last ambulance that we did, we received 3 bids, and because of the wood portion of the ambulance, 2 of those 3 bids didn't pass the bid process. So there's the possibility we could still go out to bid and end up with 1 bid, just based on the way that we write the bid. That's not something that we're trying to do. We're trying to do it, if we do write the bid, we want it so that multiple manufacturers can do it. But some of the stuff that I brought up earlier is stuff that we feel is very, very important to the safety of our personnel.
And my second question is kind of very general, is part of the bidding process, you can kind of compare, great companies to one another. How do we know the reputation of Braun? Obviously, you guys think they're good, but who are their competitors, and, what aside maybe from the sliding door and the all aluminum, maybe those are the 2 points.
Yeah, I mean, all manufacturers have their niches. Braun's been, I don't even know how long Braun's been around, probably 50 years plus. I mean, they're one of the leading manufacturers in the ambulance industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
They have some other proprietary, they have a rounded roof on their vehicle as opposed to just a completely flat. Helps to prevent any ice buildup, water buildup, that type of stuff on it, which then, if the water sits up there, it can rust. But that's more of one of their little niches, their sales niche. For us, that's to me, that's not a safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a convenience.
Okay.
Anyone else? Alder Wood?
So I think, I can't remember the names, if I just did a quick search this afternoon for the names of other manufacturers. I think NEV, or maybe that's a group that has other manufacturers.
Horton MedTech.
Horton, yeah.
Deemers.
Are those, some of them I saw were in California, which I assume that really is not feasible for us.
Some are in Canada.
Yeah. But there were some that seemed geographically possible. Did the committee look at their current models to see whether they've made any of the changes to have the sliding door or the interior or any of the other items?
I mean, we looked around, but the whole committee, just because we've been using this ambulance for 6 years right now,
Right.
We're comfortable with it. We're comfortable with the layout. We're comfortable with all the controls, the electronic controls. I mean, it's muscle memory for us right now when we're in there.
No, I get all that, but
And it's hard when we go to another manufacturer because they use totally different controls. The way they manufacture the cabinetries and stuff inside is totally different.
right. I guess my thought is, or question, if we did a bid, we'd find out for sure what their current models have and what they don't have, and whether they could meet, I don't know, maybe you already know whether they've made any of these changes so that the items that you had mentioned. And so the other question is, if we approve this, are you going to come back then later with a purchase request? when
Yes.
we get the actual, okay,
Yes.
so we're not saying,
You're
go buy
not-
it.
You're not approving the purchase right now.
Okay.
You're approving going to, basically, like you said, sending everything out for bids. This way, then we can work directly with the one manufacturer for exactly how we want it.
Right. Just a semantics point, we refer to these things as bids when really they're not bids. I mean, they're quotes. It's shorthand. It's easier to do that. If they were actual bids, then you pretty much have to go with the low cost bidder, unless you can say that they're irresponsible or not a responsible bidder, and so so they really, if it's a quote, you can still pick one that's more expensive if you think it's better. So.
Anyone? Alder Holmquist?
So I appreciate the thoroughness on making sure that fiscally we're evaluating purchases. I think this is one particular area that sole sourcing makes sense, because I would encourage the committee not to write it so broad, as if anybody could put in a quote to then be designed later and it not meet what it is that we actually want. I think this is a piece of equipment that I think we want to be very specific in what it is that we want. It's not a generic item. I think there are items that are generic items or generic services that can be described in a way that lots of people can fulfill. Particular pieces of equipment, I think we need to be very specific and know what it is that we want to get. So I appreciate the path going sole source and the reasons.
Anyone else? Alder Spate?
I guess I would just make a comment, I completely support why you would make the choice and why we would make the choice to stick with the Braun, ambulance. I do think, though, just for our own due diligence to the public and for all of our comfort, and maybe this is my own research project, but it's a matter of public record what other municipalities are paying for ambulances. And I'm sure it wouldn't be that hard to figure out, and maybe you even know, does Madison have a variety of manufacturers? Do they use Braun's? So, McFarland, other municipalities here? I mean, how many, I don't notice, you guys probably notice ambulances.
Currently, all the Madison rigs,
yeah,
they have 13 ambulances and they're all Braun right now.
Okay.
McFarland is all Braun, Fitzroy is all Braun, Middleton is all Braun. So that's pretty much three-quarters of the county.
Right.
Madison has gone to a different bid with Dahmer's, Deemers out of Canada. They also, when they do their bids, it's a 5-year
contract,
multi-vehicle contract. So when you're doing something like that, yes, your bids, because of the size of the bid process is so big that it makes sense to do it. When you're doing one vehicle, every 6-8 years, whatever it may be, we tend to stay with what we know, what has worked really well for us. We have not had a whole lot of issues with our ambulances, doors, hinges, that type of stuff. It's all held up real well. We're very pleased with their product.
But it's a popular ambulance in, in Dane County.
Well, it just proves, they build a quality rig. Why would somebody want it?
And then, with ambulances, I don't want to say they're like a car, but you can build them as extravagant as you want them.
I mean, Middleton's has real gold leaf on it. We don't. We won't.
Glad to hear that.
Interesting.
I mean, so that, when you look, so when you also, when you're looking at bids, when we look at, you know, what Middleton paid for their ambulances, when we bought ours, theirs was, I think, $40,000 more, and it was maybe a year difference.
Yeah, ours, actually, the last time we bid, I mean, it was pretty reasonable, and like you said, all the other bids around that we know were probably 20 to 40,000 higher than our bid. So it just proves too, ours is not extravagant. I mean, it's just, you know, it fits our needs.
Well, and they also have the CAD drawings of our current ambulance, which we're going to basically duplicate. So that definitely helps with building it, bringing the cost down.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, item D, consideration of resolution 18-2-2239, approving a bid for the purchase of a street sweeper put forth by the Public Works Committee. This was also passed on with no decision by Public Works, or by the Finance and Personnel Committee, for essentially the same reason.
Yeah, no recommendation.
Right, no recommendation.
So it's a little bit, well, Dan can, it's a little different, but.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The next 5 items of mine, this is first read only, no action tonight. This is, all 5 will be going to the Public Works Committee this coming Wednesday, and then back here for the second read at February 19th. So, the first item here I have is the street sweeper. The 2018 capital budget has $230,000 allocated for the replacement of our Elgin street sweeper. We did advertise this piece of equipment at the Herald Independent, on our website, Wisconsin Bid Network, and we sent it to 3 vendors for the equipment. It was Arnow, Johnston Sweeper, and then Elgin. We did receive only 1 bid back, and I'll explain why a little bit later here. From Arnow, it was for the 2018 Schwartz A9 Monsoon sweeper for a price of $234,128, which was higher than our budgeted amount. It does include a trade-in value of $25,000 for our current sweeper. We're seeking, along with this resolution, we're seeking an additional $4,650 to cover the amount above the capital budget price. We are able to get that balance from unspent monies in our current capital budget from the administrator's vehicle, which we already signed a PO for, the pickup truck, which we came here for a few weeks ago, that has some unspent balance, and then I think $250 out of the garage improvements balance, which we also made that purchase a few weeks ago. Regarding the 1 bid, we did test drive and demoed 4 street sweepers before we put this out to bid and before we wrote our spec. And I included some pictures of our current sweeper. It evolves around the rear door. We wrote our spec for a full-size rear door, and there's only 1 manufacturer for the full-size rear door, and that's the A9 Monsoon by Schwartz. We did that because the current sweeper, when we dump, the debris block gets held up by this 10 to 11 inch piece of metal on top of the door, which requires the operator to go back there with a pitchfork and break the block apart in order to dump it. So there's a safety issue there, as well as about 15 to 20 minutes of additional time by breaking that chunk up so it can easily dump. So the A9 Monsoon is the only sweeper out there that has a full-size door, so that's why we wrote it into our spec to have a full-size door. We're going to save on operator safety and operator maintenance time for cleaning the sweeper. We dump about 80 times a year. So there's a cost there for that. I believe those are really the details that we talked about at finance, so.
Alderwood, would you like to make a comment?
Sure. So it's similar to the situation, in my opinion, to the previous item, although Dan did get multiple quotes. There's this, we put in a bid spec that only one company was going to be able to meet, so effectively we didn't, it's really not a competitive, we can get competitive pricing. And my concern again is, this is, $230,000 item, and we don't know what other prices we would get from other models or other manufacturers. We don't know. And granted, apparently they're not, any of them going to have the rear door, which the way Dan describes it is definitely a benefit. But, there may be other features, other reasons why they would be superior in other regards, or they might be a whole lot cheaper, enough cheaper that we would say, hey, I know the full-size door is really good, but we don't know any of that. So that's why I would hope that the Public Works Committee would want to see a competitive quote process, if you will, for the same reasons. We don't buy these very often, maybe more often, I suppose. Well, I don't know, when did we buy it last?
The current one is 2007, so
right.
11
So
years.
even less frequently than we buy ambulances. And although I know that you know your stuff, you don't buy these very often, and there's got, I don't know. I just think to spend this much money without getting competitive prices would be a mistake. So,
If I could add, there's got to be some benefit to doing your homework. The guys did their homework. We test drove 4 different models.
right. Yeah.
They operated them, they maintained them, they clean them like they would if we owned it. And so I give them credit for finding a piece of equipment that says, hey, this is going to work for us. So we have to acknowledge that as well.
Oh, absolutely. But we don't know what those would have cost either.
I can come up with pricing. There's bid prices out on the internet for comparable pieces, and I can get that before the next meeting.
Anyone else? Alder Holmquist and then Alder Spade.
So part of this, I spoke about it earlier, of there are sometimes pieces of equipment that we want to be narrow focused, and I think some of that for me lies upon the expertise that I would expect our committees to have, and to push our departments to be able to be looking at that. So when I kind of hear sampling 4 different vehicles out there, testing them, looking at different pieces, and recognizing there's a certain component that has some reasons of why that component is important, or that committee feels is important, as well as the department. I think you went the extra piece of saying, hey, we're not preventing necessarily someone else from putting in a quote or a bid indicating we don't have that certain component. We've done it before on Public Works, where people have submitted a bid saying we meet 98% of what you're asking for, but we don't have that full rear door. What we have instead is this other mechanism that does the same thing.
Right.
People could have done that. And I would expect a committee to do that piece of it, and beyond that, I think you've done what I would expect.
And to add more to what Alder Holmquist had just said, we did write that in the spec. We wrote equivalence language. We wrote alternate language. That is coming out of Public Works Committee a few years ago when we had the leaf truck, our last leaf truck. So we did provide a path for other vendors to submit a bid. So,
I know with other issues, when we have bid, I can think of some of our park construction projects, when we bid, then come back and as a committee, then critique a bid for not including something or wanting to then rebid it again. We send a message that we're not committed to sticking by what it is that we're writing
Right.
and asking for. And in effect, what we end up losing is future bids. No one wants to waste the time.
Alder Spade?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm somewhere between the other two alders and their comments. I would appreciate knowing what this other equipment that we test drove, what are the 4 trucks, what's their list price? What's their manufacturer's recommended list price, which is a objective, piece of information that people put out there when they manufacture something. Or just something that's, comparable, that allows us to know. Because this is something we all do, and I agree, like, we should be demanding equipment and investments, buildings, everything we do, we should do thoughtfully. We shouldn't simply race to the cheapest thing. So, I want to commend the council and commend you and the staff for demanding that we have things that work, that are quality. So we're on the right path, but at the same time, we all do this every day, where we're having to compare that thing which we really want, and then look at what that cost, and compare it to those things which aren't as good, and decide, is it worth the extra investment? The committees deserve that to some extent, and the council deserves that. And that doesn't take away from our trust in city staff and in you as the administrator to say this is really that thing which we've decided works best for our community. And then, if it's 10% more to have that, then I think we can, and this is something that's going to last 10 years, we can do the numbers, and I'm sure we would say, yeah, that's worth doing. But then we're doing it with an understanding for what we're really choosing.
I can have that comparable data, hopefully by Public Works on Wednesday, and definitely by the 19th, so I'll have something to show you.
Anyone else? Item 2E, consideration of ordinance number 1-18-695, establishing parking limits on Roselawn Avenue, also put forth by the Public Works Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. We had a request from Feldy's Flowers recently for a section of newly installed curb on Roselawn. This is in association with the Quick Trip reconstruction. There was a large driveway opening, about 40 feet or so, on Roselawn that was recently reconstructed with the addition of a curb. I included a map of the drawing that Quick Trip provided that shows the 2 new driveways now separated by this section of 25-foot curb. And I also included 2 photos that I took. And you can see a car parked where the new soil is. The top photo shows that curb line, and the bottom photo also shows the Feldy's Flowers delivery area. We have similar situations that council entertained a few years ago for Mangrove. There was truck traffic up there that had a hard time backing in as well with the parked cars. So their driver, since this curb was put in a few months ago, is having a hard time backing in because this car is always there. It's a new curb that was not previously there, so the driver never had a problem before. So I don't think it's really a big issue for anybody, except for this car that always parks there. So the request would be to have a sign installed, no parking between driveways. And I believe that should take care of the issue for deliveries.
Comments? Questions?
Dan,
Alder Holmquist?
I'm trying to see it on the plan of, why did it end up with 2 driveways? Is it because we left the one loading dock on the other side?
No, it used to be one wide driveway. What Quick Trip did was, they basically took a large width of a driveway, made it like a small, narrow
Retention.
delivery lane. I don't know. It's a back entry to the Quick Trip store now. Apparently, they didn't need the wide driveway. It's kind of hard to show on that plan set print, but you can see it in the photo. You see the chain link fence right off to the front right of the vehicle I'm sitting in. That's the driveway to the Quick Trip from Rose Lawn. And then you have the soiled area. That's the new grass that they're planting. That all used to be pavement. They no longer need that. And then on the south side of that new soil is the other delivery area for that plaza you see right there. That's how wide that apron used to be. And Quick Trip didn't need that full width, so they put in some grass area. Well, it's going to be grass area.
Yeah, and if I think I remember right, that had to do with, at Plan Commission, it had to do with cleaning the water. It was running through that area, and
is it
that's
like
why we needed to take pavement out. Because it's saying you can't put snow storage there, if I remember correctly.
Is that like a storm drain? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that print is hard to see. That's like a storm, like a small pond or a dry pond. Well, that explains why they narrowed their driveway.
Yeah.
So
we were trying to be creative of where to flow the water.
yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, let's see. Item F, consideration of ordinance number 2-18-696, amending chapter 381-6 of the Code of Ordinances regarding brush collection, put forth by the Public Works Committee.
Okay, the next 3 topics kind of are all related to one another. And this stems from some good discussion at the Public Works Committee regarding our brush collection program. The Public Works Committee will be entertaining this on Wednesday. The intent there is to provide direction in the city ordinance of what the brush collection program is for. We also want to set the placement requirements and establish pile size requirements. We're going to be talking in greater detail on that on Wednesday, but the draft that you see before you, if you turn the page to the red line version, the red line version is all the new language that we're putting out there for the committee and council to take a look at. Once Public Works Committee views this on Wednesday, then we will turn it over to the city attorney for his review, just in case there's any changes coming out of committee. But essentially, the intent of the program is to provide a way for residents to get rid of tree trimmings, brush trimmings, not to dispose of entire trees, which is what our contractor has been seeing in the past. If they have large trees or many large trees they need to get rid of, I think contracting with a tree company might be their best route. But the intent of our curbside program is basically for tree trimming, branches that fall off the trees, things like that. We have language in paragraph 4 that basically asks the resident to put it in an orderly manner, uniformly stacked, not intermingled. We get a few brush piles every year where it's just thrown at the curb, and the guys who have to pick that can't pick it because then you're pulling the whole pile. We put in our newsletter all the ends facing one way. That way you can grab, go, and feed. So we are actually identifying that in the city ordinance instead of just putting it in the newsletter. It gives it a little more teeth to the program. We're also looking at in Paragraph 5, establishing a standard pile size. And I know this is one that the committee was debating at the last meeting, and we're going to be talking about on Wednesday. But the pile size that we're putting forward, at least in this draft version, is a 4x4x10. And that's essentially, it's just under 6 cubic yards of brush that a resident would be able to put out for that scheduled collection. And the proposal that we're going to be talking about next is based off that 4x4x10 brush pile size. And it also includes no change to the holiday collection program. So, but these are the proposed changes to the ordinance that we're looking at.
Alder Kitzler?
Do most municipalities offer this service?
None. There are, I should say, with a contracted company. The most of the municipalities that I looked at online, they have their own city staff that does a curbside program, but the majority also have a drop-off program along with the curbside program.
Mm-hmm.
Have not come across any municipality that has a contract with a private company to do the work.
Would Madison ever be interested in popping through and
I can't imagine
contracting
so.
with us?
Because they do it a completely different way. They come by with a big truck and a grapple and just pick and go. But I can't imagine they would be interested in Monona. You know, they have a lot of ash tree issues that they're working on. So,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Anyone else? Doug?
Did you know that the prior contractor, would they refuse to pick up? Like if somebody, I think we've all seen it where somebody has cut down a tree in their yard and then they stack it by the road expecting us to come and pick it up. Would they just refuse to do that? Or do you get, like how, because I think that would be totally reasonable if people are exceeding what they're supposed to put out, just to say, no, we're not going to pick it up and you need to get it out of here.
We've ran into a number of issues, I guess, in my 7 years managing the program. We've run into times where we did not pick a pile because it's been intermingled. I mean, we're talking big piles that were just thrown there. We had 58 feet of curb line last year, for instance, that the entire curb front was intermingled pile. Mike refused to pick it up until they resorted it, and they did resort it. There have been probably at least a dozen occasions in the past 6 years where there has been a debate about a private contractor coming in to fell the tree and limit out and put the branches at the curb. Some of those carried on quite a bit through email and phone discussions. They've reached the mayor, former Mayor Miller. And basically the directive is, okay, someone's lying. And it always ends up where we just go pick the pile. Because it's you're going by word of the neighbors who say, yes, we saw a contractor there. Then you go and talk to the resident and say, oh, no, we didn't have a contractor, we did it ourselves. And then you kind of look and think, well, how can a normal resident cut down a 75-foot tree? So you run into those debates. And you know, we come very close one time without saying you're lying because the number of neighbors said that they saw contractors there. And otherwise, we just give in. We just say, chip the pile and we'll pay you. Because it really turns into a big debate.
Yeah.
So that's why we feel that establishing pile size limitations is going to help the program. It's going to be more efficient for the program, and if they have a greater need for that, then they should probably hire a company anyway to help them out. If they do have excess brush, they can take it to the Dane County landfill. They have a yard waste drop-off site there. They'd pay a little bit in a fee. Barnes has indicated that the residents can contact them. They can chip it for a small fee based on time. So there are other options outside of the program that residents will have.
Alder Kitzler?
And I know this overlaps to the next few items of discussion, but is that why the current contractor is not renewing?
That's part of the reason. He indicated he's losing money while he's here chipping our brush. There's a big demand right now for cutting down trees, ash trees. So he feels that while he's here chipping brush, he could be making more, cutting trees down. Whereas Barnes, they're more of a landscape company, not geared towards tree cutting, so.
Anyone else? Andy, could you do me a favor and ask them to quiet down? I've never noticed that before, but it's, yeah, maybe something's on that shouldn't be, or. Thank you.
Mayor. Alder.
Alder Holmquist.
I'm curious where the size of the pile 4x4x10 came from.
I've done some research, and there are a number of communities that have pile sizes out there. That seems to be around the standard. Some of them have been smaller. The 10 foot in length seems to be a uniform length for the branch. It's either that or they cut it in half and put it at the curb. A 3x3 by 3, 3x3 by 6. If the residents will find the way to be efficient with their stack, and it's going to involve cutting off all the finger branches to make all single branches. That's the way to get, to max out the 4x4x10 pile size. But it's more of a standard that I've seen out there. I know Alder Spate, I think at the last meeting you mentioned like a 3x3 by 6, somewhere in that area, but.
That's pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
If we think of the average property in Monona and the number of trees, and just basic pruning of even bushes, you're going to exceed 4x4x10.
City of Milwaukee has 3x3 by 6. They advertise theirs as the equivalent of a couch. Yeah. So.
I would just, it's a good point, and so one of the debates that the Public Works Committee is continuing to have to some degree is how much of this do we really want to provide as just a service that comes with your property tax bill, right, and then what constitutes a special collection. Right. And whether or not, we talked about as a committee whether or not we wanted to move towards that model where, you would sign up for a collection, much in the way, you get a tag to have an appliance removed or something. And wasn't that maybe a more equitable approach? But the opinion of the committee, at least, and of course, the committee will weigh in, and then the council has to decide if that's what we really want to do. But the committee seems to feel at this point that we should be doing some form of free routine brush collection, but that it has to have a limit. Right. And if you've got a ton of trees on your property, then maybe you're going to have to make some accommodation, with a service that will come and pay for it. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. Like, we want to be reasonable. But some people made the point, hey, my yard's bigger than that. And we were like, well, you've got to draw the line somewhere, because the problem now is we have no limit.
Right.
So.
Anyone else?
Mayor, just one last item from me. I know initially a few times I've mentioned that we want to establish a list for residents to get on a chipping list. Talking to some other staff at City Hall, they would rather not do that at this time. And Barnes had indicated that it doesn't matter one way or another for them, so we're not promoting the list right now. So.
Okay.
And the list being, I just want to make sure I'm clear. What does that mean?
The list that I was talking about was asking residents who have a brush pile to somehow contact City Hall and get on a chipping list. The administrative staff feels that would be more of a burden, more of a headache than what it is now. So we're not going to do that right now.
So keep it by zones.
Yep.
Simple.
Right.
Okay. Let's see, item G, consideration of resolution 18-2-2241, approving a proposal from Barnes Incorporated for brush collection services, put forth by the Public Works Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I did ask two companies, Advanced Disposal was the other company. Back in 2010, when the city issued an RFP, we had two companies as well. There was Johnson Tree Care, who is our former contractor, and at that time it was Veolia, who is now Advanced Disposal. So the same two companies. Contacted Advanced Disposal 2 times. They indicated they were interested, but they never did turn in any price proposal to me. They were reevaluating things, and I think they had mentioned there was one other community that they were looking at, but they never moved forward with that other community either. So, so we have Barnes. Barnes is a local company out of the Fitchburg area. They had submitted a 3-year proposal for us, and you have that information in your packet. And the curbside program price for 2018 is $55,000. They have language in there for storm damage collection as well as Christmas tree collection. Our Christmas tree collection for this year has already been done, so but we still want to account for that in our overall 2018 budget price. So this topic right now is just for the proposal. The next item is to entertain the operating budget amendment to cover the cost, but I was expecting this to come in quite higher than what it was. I was expecting somewhere around 80 to 90,000, but it's nice to see a $55,000 curbside price. The 2018 budget that we have right now is $47,380. That's divided in half between the forestry account and the stormwater utility account. So I guess I'll wait for the operating budget amendment information till the next item.
Questions, anyone? Okay, item H, consideration of resolution 18-2-2242, amending the 2018 operating budget to fund the 2018 curbside brush collection program, Public Works Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So we are asking for an additional $17,620 to complete the curbside brush chipping program for 2018. I do have an estimated $6,000 in there in case we have a storm damage that comes through this summer. Like I said, our Christmas tree collection was already done for $4,000. I am basing the prices for, or the estimated prices for the storm damage off of 2 guys, 8 hours a day, 4 days a week, at their $95 an hour proposed price. We may not use that. That could be $6,000 we don't spend. So for 2018, the $55,000 for the curbside price, but asking for a operating budget amendment to total $65,000 for the program.
Questions? Alderwood.
It's not so much a question, just, I guess reflect what we talked about at personnel and finance was, what, we're down to basically net right now, at least one company that will do this, so we are involuntarily sole sourcing this.
It's a theme.
And it's a pretty big hike, because the 47,000 included Christmas tree collection, is that right?
Yes.
So to apples, it's really like 59,000, so it's about a 12 grand jump. So, which is kind of the other options that were talked about in various combinations were doing it in-house, which would require adding staff. We used to do it, I think it was 10 years ago or so. We did do it in-house. We stopped doing it for a couple of, I think workers' comp issues and the cost of the equipment and so forth. Felt we could do it cheaper outsourcing it. But if we may come into a situation where either the price gets so high that it's just cost prohibitive, or nobody will do it. So, and then we had to figure out, do we use this is not, there was a suggestion made that someone has considered the idea of using the dog park as a brush collection site. So it's not my idea, Bob Miller. I know you're listening. But I wasn't in favor of the dog park, but now that it's there, I don't know that I want to fill it up with brush. So anyway, that was kind of the gist of the discussion. And I'd rather not have special fees, that Alder Spade had talked about. For one thing, most lots in Monona generate quite a bit of brush and branches and stuff. I mean, mine actually probably generates less than just about anybody's, because they don't really have anything in the way of trees on it. But for the most part, everybody does. I mean, there are some that they do have really huge yards, and they generate more than is reasonable for the city to be expected to pick up. And I think they need to figure out either a way to, spread it out through the year, or hire somebody to come in and get rid of it. But I'd rather not. I mean, I don't like particularly the large item pickup fee. I know that's a debate that's that ship sailed, but I mean, at one time or another, pretty much everybody needs large items picked up, and it's just kind of a pain to have, for it's a city service, but we have to call the contract provider to arrange to come and pick it up, and then we have to pay them. It's anyway, I digress. So.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next item, which is up for immediate consideration, item I, consideration of resolution 18-2-2240, establishing an ad hoc pedestrian and bicycle committee, and put forth by myself.
Move to take this item out of order.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
I'd like to offer one amendment to this, in the second whereas, that we add after the word safety, that we add and accessibility. So that's a motion to amend.
I'll second that.
The idea is, I just want to make sure that the record is clear that we're not just talking about safety,
That
we're
is
talking
true.
about walkability, essentially.
Yes. So this is something that I've been talking about since last fall, and we have money approved in the capital budget to work on with a traffic engineer to work on some solutions, both for the problems on the south end of Winnequa Road, which I know we all got an email from a local resident about that in the last couple of days, and the northern end of Winnequa Road, but the rest of the city too. Our basic goal here is to plan for some safe corridors for bike riders and pedestrians, is what we're thinking. So I'm asking you to approve the appointments to the committee later on in the agenda. So does anybody have any questions? Alder Holmquist?
Because there are particular areas that have been discussed multiple times over a good course of time, and we've talked about, hey, let's kind of put a lot of these things together in one type of plan. Is the expectation from this group that those items might be tackled first for us to consider action as we enter the upcoming spring? Or is the expectation that this group will complete its mission, presenting a plan that would be considered to address the totality of issues, and having us wait to implement more immediate actions, if that made sense?
I think I would say it's sort of in between the two.
Yeah, right.
Alder Wood, we had a meeting about this last week, organizing the committee, and Doug, if you want to address that.
So there's more, there's, as the mayor said, there's sort of two parts to this. One is looking at two specific areas of Winnequa Road. And Tom Lynch at Strand is going to be staffing the committee, so I think we're really fortunate to have him doing this. But that's sort of, looking at some short-term, relatively inexpensive fixes or improvements, and also then medium range and longer range things that would be more expensive. So some of those, I think, could be, even though it's still, the committee's not, I don't expect the committee to be done for 14 to 16 months is my guess, maybe, hopefully sooner, but I kind of doubt it. But I think some of those things could still be pulled out and, implemented in the next budget. But then there's the other area of Winnequa by Schluter Beach and the bake shop, which will probably, my guess is there might be some inexpensive things you could do fairly quickly, but probably longer term solutions are going to not going to be implemented till the next budget go around at least. And then the final thing is just the overall plan to look at both pedestrian and bicycle facilities. I think the emphasis is more on pedestrian facilities than bicycle. Bicycle will certainly get plenty of attention, but there will be I know we have at least 2 public information meetings built into the process, one early and one later, and also having a special separate meeting at some point midway to 3/4 of the way through the process. We were thinking we'd have a joint meeting with Public Works and Public Safety to get their input before any kind of plan gets recommended. And then at the end of the day we would have a plan that would be something that to implement, not to put on a shelf. So.
Alder Kitzler.
For what it's worth, just to echo what Alder Holmquist, and I think what we're kind of agreeing on is, I would encourage us to, as much as possible, kind of pick, I hate to overuse this, low-hanging fruit as much as possible so that we're able to implement something before the end of the year. One thing that comes to mind was at one of the university projects, I forget what the clever name is, but they essentially did kind of some ad hoc tests with barriers and different things like that to test things out. I don't know if you remember when they were talking about was it Queensway and Midmore, or what is it, McKenna, Schluter, and what's that road right by Winnequa?
Greenway.
Yeah, Greenway. They kind of came up with this ad hoc cement barrier thing to test things out. So anyways, I just bring that idea up because, when we're talking about this in particular in certain stretches of Winnequa, I think trying those out sooner rather than later might be helpful. But as much as you're able to kind of compartmentalize and do that would be great.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Just a quick note, the university year reports that were related to transportation, Tom Lynch has reviewed, and parts will be part of this process, so he found them quite useful.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is reports of committees, commissions, boards, mayor, etc. Alder Kitzler.
I just want to say congratulations to the Friends of the Monona Library. I think most of everyone was there. It was a great Loud in the Library event, a lot of fun. Although I lost at the marshmallow toss, and I think there was some sort of conniving by some other alders here to make me lose. And then I just want to say, been out shoveling a number of times recently, and thank Dan and his staff for being out there and plowing and spending the endless hours that I hear a street sweeper behind us and such. So, thanks to you and your crew for always being out there, and they usually always wave, so it's nice to see friendly faces.
Alder Wood?
No report, other than to say that the effort at conniving in the marshmallow toss was a utter failure, because I didn't get enough marshmallows in to overthrow Andy anyway. So.
Alder Spate?
Well, I am honored that I momentarily dethroned Alder Kitzlar from third place, but it was not to be. I will say that now that I live on Monona Drive most of the time, I really miss the snow plowing that happens in our less busy streets. So I'll just say that. No other report.
Alder Holmquist?
No report.
Alder Coor?
I have nothing to report.
City Clerk Andrews?
Absentee voting has begun in City Hall today and will go through February 16th for the February 20th spring primary.
City Administrator Little?
I also enjoyed my first library gala. I thought they just did a fantastic job. And just a little quick note, Joan has just celebrated 10 years as our city clerk, so that's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Joan. The only thing I have, I think you all received rosters from Leah of your current committee members, and we're starting this reappointment process now. So if you would take a look at who is up for reappointment this year and have a discussion amongst yourselves, your co-chair and the person who staffs as to the status of the people who are up for reappointment. If you feel they are still contributing to the committee and you'd like to ask them to be reappointed or whatever, and then just follow through with the process. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. I guess that moves us on to appointments. Number 1, Jeff Simmons to the Police and Fire Commission, effective immediately through May of 2022. And then the second one is to the Ad Hoc Pedestrian and Bicycle Committee, effective immediately. Alder Doug Wood is chair. Alder Chad Spate, Julie Burns, Leslie Bussey, Angela Fassel, Mary Poseen, and Larry Reed. Is there a motion to approve the appointments?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.